creature designers. A little bit of eye rendering today. A quick sketch to start off to explain the parts of the eyeball. The ball of the eye is covered by a lens at the front called the cornea. Behind the cornea is an iris, that's the bit which typically shows the colour, and hanging off the back of the iris is the lens itself. So when we typically see the eye from the front, we see some concentric circles, the centre being the iris. Right in the middle is the pupil, normally the darkest. And the light source typically shines on the top of the eyeball, catches the cornea and reflects onto the iris. The reflection on the iris itself is less than that on the cornea. So we start by rendering a sphere. Just setting up the layers here. The ball has a light spot where our main source is going to hit it, and it graduates to dark. I'm just laying in the iris and the pupil, dropping in the highlight on the outer cornea and on the inside of the iris. A little bit more glow or illumination. And now I'm just reinforcing where the iris attaches to the eyeball itself. So next we will duplicate this little example. There we go. And we'll add some variations to these three. We'll start with the first one by enlarging the iris, making the pupil a little less prominent and the iris not catching as much light. Just noodle the edges here. Second example, again enlarge the iris, this time giving more of a surface for the light to catch, and add in a secondary ring around the pupil. This gives us the option of catching more light inside, giving a somewhat unearthly look. You'll typically find this in birds. The third example, again enlarge the iris, and we decide to darken the eyeball this time. So what would normally be the white part of the eye you see, which I think is called the sclera, is darkened to be almost black. The iris in this example is quite bright, catching a lot of the light. The cornea catches the outer source. And we'll drop on some colours on this one. So collapse and duplicate. Give a somewhat pinkish tinge to the eyeball. A brown to the iris, and then some subtle variations inside. Same on the second example, this time slightly purple on the eyeball, blue for the iris. A little bit of variation with some darker colours. And the final example, a nice red. Now the colour temperature is played with on this one, so we've introduced some yellows, some purples and some pinks. Just adjusting the contrast. So we'll put this into practice and we'll come up with an eyeball. Blocking in the forms that are going to surround the eyeball. At the moment just laying out a typical eyeball shape and an eyelid upper and lower. Shade the sphere, bearing in mind it's somewhat hidden by the eyelids itself. Drop in the iris, the pupil, strengthen the shadow cast by the upper eyelid, define in a little bit of form, add in the highlights to the eyeball, the cornea and the iris, using the smudge tool here just to indicate a little bit of the striation you get on the iris itself. So tidying up the forms a little bit, strengthening with some dark and light, again making the separations using tonal contrast, a little bit of liquify here just to restructure the outer eye shape itself. So we're going to lay on some colours using an overlay mode. Sort of flesh tone to start with. A nice bright blue for the iris. Some colour variations. Some aqua, some green, some blue. Some more colour variation for the skin tone. Duplicating the layer. Changing the blend modes. Trying to find something interesting. Deleting through the upper layer now to bring back some of that red warm tone from the original skin layer. So once you've got your basic eye shape, you can duplicate it, flip it horizontal, and then start refining a design. So here, adding in a bit more of the skin and the forms between the eyes, the nasal bridge giving that distinctive keystone shape at the top, introducing some darks and lights, sampling from the colours that are already there, and defining a bridge of a nose. So I hope you've enjoyed this little walkthrough. Feel free to vary the shapes of the eyeballs, the surrounding tissues, the pupils, the iris and the colours, and have some fun. So let me know what you think. I'm going to be working on a more advanced example, and that'll be posted shortly. So thanks for watching.